Hello and welcome to our full moon conversation, which is going to be a little bit about reflection and integration from the past conversations that we've had with our amazing guests, and a little bit about what's coming up for us as we think about the new moon, this new moon, full moon. It's a blue moon. And thanks for being here. Who wants to go first? How do we want to start?
How do we want to start?
I was thinking about, as we've done all of the different interviews, how there still is this kind of overriding curiosity about the language that we're using, and if feminine is the right word to use, what we're talking about embodying. And while I have wavered a little bit, I still feel like it's a useful term to use. And I think, especially after having the conversation with Duncan, where we were talking a little bit about the masculine, he highlighted how they are very cautious about or aware of the language that they use so as to not discourage a man from joining the work that they do. And I think that if I was being honest about it, that's an important thing to be thinking of. And are we excluding folks, or are we potentially losing folks' interest because we use the word feminine? And so maybe just talk a little bit about how we're feeling about the word.
I have so much to say. When we talked to Duncan about this exact thing, he said, and we're very careful not to use the term masculine on the website. And I was like, I thought he was going to say feminine. Funny. And so I was so surprised when he said masculine. Right? Like, I was like, oh, okay. And then I thought it was so interesting. And to exactly what you're saying, I do personally think that we are not losing people, but missing people who won't tune in because they feel a certain way about that word, right? Like, this is what we've talked about from the beginning. It is a loaded term for a lot of people. We're always kind of in this exploration of, is there a better word? We can go into all of that again. And I thought we had a great conversation with Dr. Svela about that. And I wavered too. And I don't know that I've come out on the other side being like, yes, we should definitely keep using the term feminine. I don't know what else we would do, right? There's still that question mark. But I do think that the perspectives from our guests, perspectives that I've heard from different listeners, I do think that there is this potentiality of, I don't even think it's a potential. I think for sure we're losing some people in the language.
Right. Which I guess brings up another question, is it important? Is it more important to be helping others value the feminine versus being turned away from the idea of it? And like, I feel like there's a little healing, there's a potential for healing the feminine, and along with it, because it has been very integrated with women, because women have historically been perceived as embodying those qualities of being softer, of being listeners, of being nurturer, of being going with the flow, maybe less rigid. So forsaking the feminine to me does feel directly derivative of the view of women and how women are viewed. So it feels like an opportunity for healing there.
Like a reclamation of the word? Is that what you mean, or something different?
Well, to alchemize is the word that comes to mind, but maybe it's more of integrate the word for ourselves. You know, it makes me think of when I was trying to get pregnant. And I'm sure I've talked about this before, but I'll just kind of go through it slowly again. I realized that I didn't personally value the qualities of the mother as a worthwhile endeavor, even though I wanted to be a mother and I loved my mother. I love my mother and I value all of the things that she did for me. But it sort of, it took like second place to the other things that I was doing, which was, but I needed to have a important job and I needed to make a lot of money and build this infrastructure in my life and do all of those things. And it was kind of like those feminine mothering qualities took second place. And so I had to go through my own process of learning to slow down, of learning to listen to myself largely, and to embody the feminine physically in my being. And so it feels like I was integrating that for myself. And not only was that doing it for me from an energetic perspective, bringing more balance to me energetically, which is how we've talked about the feminine, but it was actually healing my relationship with mother and the mother archetype and the values that I put on mother. And as somebody who is softer, who isn't focused on achievement, who is focused on nurturing and caring. And so that needed to be healed within me. And I think if we could do that socially, culturally across communities, that would be healing. So maybe I'm sort of talking circular reasoning here, but it's that there is this tether between what women have done, women's work, and embodying the feminine that needs a healing. And in order for it to become into balance with the masculine on a broader spectrum, like on a cultural perspective. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense what you're saying. And I'm also reflecting on when we learned more about Duncan's work. And I said in that interview too, I was like, oh, we're all kind of healing the same things, right? Like we're all victims of this corrupt or whatever toxic patriarchy that we're living under. And it's a universal need that we all need to bring in more vulnerability, more, and I think it's more out of balance and needs to bring up the feminine qualities, but I don't know, like Duncan won't even use the word masculine with his guys, right? And so I feel like there is a call to talk about it in different terms so that it can be related to more universally, even for women who don't identify with the term feminine.
Right. But that's, to me, it's like understanding where that rejection of the term comes from. And not everyone is going to be motivated to do that work. And so that's where Duncan is running a business, right? And while this is technically a business, we are currently not doing it for income, which you can subscribe and support us on Patreon. But there are other reasons why, from a business perspective, you may choose not to do that. Where, to me, this work that we're doing is more based in principle than it is based in revenue.
For sure.
And so that's where it's like there's a different evaluation that I undertake for myself. And I mean, that's why I don't know. I got so excited when we talked to Perdita and the fact that she was trying to take mother out of the gender. And I thought that's it. I mean, that is it. And this isn't what she said necessarily, but it is these notions of what the mother is. And it's somebody who's looking out for you, who's caring for you. And it's, of course, not only mothers do that, but if we were all embodying that and looking at ourselves and our families and our neighbors and our broader community and embodying that mother archetype for one another, like that would be tremendous. But that isn't a primary value. That's not a high ranked value for most people. And how do we inspire folks to consider that? And maybe that's a silly question because maybe you can't do that. I don't know. And that's a different conversation in a sense, but
Yeah. And I am a purist, right? And so I do agree that what we're talking about is feminine qualities, the feminine archetype. And I also am very aware that we could reach more people if we didn't use the language. And it's like how I'm trying to think of another example because this happens to me in life because I am such a person. I'm like, no, I have to say it this way. This is the correct way. This is the right way. And I dig my heels in on it at a cost. At a cost. I don't know. I'm not like coming here and saying we need to change our tagline or whatever. I think regardless of what we call it, the conversations are the same, right? Like the intention is the same, but I am still in a question about the terminology of the F word.
Yes, the F word. Thank you, Dr. Svela. So that's an interesting thing to continue to marinate in. Would you, if you think back to the conversations that we've been having, are there other things that have surprised you or caused you to pause and really think about?
I feel like the conversation with Perdita, I don't know that it was surprising, but it felt very almost revolutionary what she's talking about and how she talks about it and how impassioned she is, not only about looking back to our ancestors for support, but like what you were saying is like, if you look at every single being as your mother, and if we all, what impacted me more was looking at others as our mother, not the acting as a mother so much, because I think she was talking about both. But if we could see everything as a mother, like I feel like that with the plants and when I go outside, like that connection that I have with that world even shifted a little bit because I think of it more as like a peer relationship a lot of times when I talk to the plants and the trees. Some of them have like an elder, a lot of them have an elder energy, but I really feel like her message is so important and I'm hopeful that it reaches a wide range of people and can help them kind of step out of like the current way of thinking, the current way of looking at each other, and it brings more softness and it brings more connection.
Right. And I'm just going to be snarky for a moment. But if you think about the word feminine and having a hard time separating it from women, mother is even harder to me to separate from woman. Yet it feels revolutionary to be talking about it that way. And why does that feel different?
I feel like the word mother is like way more universal and understood, right? Like if you think about, you don't need to go into the archetype world necessarily to get into like the energy of mother. Even if you don't have a great relationship with your mother or, I think you can still reach a place of understanding what that like energy is. I think it's more accessible. There's something about the term feminine that feels
well, and sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
it's okay. I don't know what I was going to say.
But mother is a complicated persona because it is not only the feminine, right? Mother is both masculine and feminine. And so maybe it's just more interesting that there's some part of our brain that's subconscious that because mother is protector, which is masculine, right? And for some reason, it's our brain has made sense that all of that is good, but the feminine is something different and less.
You mean than
mother, because the mother does embody both, even though many of us who have a good relationship with the mother archetype or actual mothers think about the mother as a nurturer, a caretaker, a tender place to go to, comfort, those types of things. But I think that our brain does know that it's all of it, right? That she does all of it. She gets stuff done. She's very active. She's not slow and sedentary. She's protecting and doing and making food and all of that stuff. So, but when we separate the feminine from the masculine, that's when we actually start to put it in a separate category of less than.
Yes.
And maybe that's why, this is like deep subconscious, unconscious filtering that our brains are doing. Maybe that's why there is this sort of general response to feminine versus mother. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Am I articulating myself?
Yeah, it makes sense. And what I'm thinking about is when we're talking about this example of a mother holding both the feminine and the masculine, I think that when you say mother, you don't have to get into that part of it. You're like, oh, mama bear, and like lifting the car off the child, and like that fierceness and that more masculine, like you don't kind of have it as a separate thing. It's encompassed all in one. So I feel like this is the difference between the term mother and the term feminine is it is all about the balance of having both. And feminine is still like talking only about one half, when really truly what we're talking about is being more imbalanced. It's just to focus on the feminine because that's what's been devalued.
And it's interesting too to then think of the father archetype and how the father can incorporate both masculine and feminine. Like I should say, of course it can, but the father does incorporate both masculine and feminine. There are certainly fathers who can be soft and caring and nurturing, but that's not, to me, I don't view it as being in balance predominantly for fathers. There are moments where they can do that, and they do that, but the predominance is more of a protector, the boundary setter, the punisher, that vibe is, and the,
teacher.
The provider, not negative, but there's, and I don't know, I was on Jaguar Mary X's show on Radio Kingston recently, and we were talking a little bit about Earth as mother. And I brought up in that conversation the role of hormones and how there might be a biological reason that women act differently than men. And yes, there is a way to override that or to move within that container of what you've been provided hormonally. And of course, everyone's hormones are different. Not every woman has the same amount of female hormones. Not every male has the same amount of male hormones. And so there's a spectrum across all genders when it comes to that. But there is largely, if your female body is functioning healthy, there are hormones present that are different than a male body's. And I shouldn't say functioning healthily, like a common way of functioning. And male bodies have a common way, a general way of functioning with hormones. And does that make a difference?
I think it does.
Yeah.
I think it does. And the thing that comes to mind when I think about that is when you have more testosterone, you have a 24-hour cycle, like the sun, right? Where it's peaking and then like dropping down and then coming back up, right? Mm-hmm. And then when your body has more of the estrogen and estriol, progesterone, and it's not testosterone dominant, then the cycle of your hormones follows more closely to the moon, right? Like it's a 28, whatever, not everyone is exact, but it's a longer cycle.
Right. And it does change during the day, right? Progesterone tends to peak at night. Mm-hmm. But there is this other cycle that's a dominant cycle.
Right. Mm-hmm. And honoring those cycles typically is something that females in female bodies would be more likely to do.
Right.
So I definitely think that chromosomes and hormones play a role in it too.
Yeah. But that being said, I do think socially many men, at least historically raised in male bodies, there have been expectations for them to behave certain ways, which just sort of further hones the testosterone, like the natural impulses. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's interesting raising a 3.5, almost 4-year-old boy, and he has a huge range of emotions. I mean, and they're extreme. But he's been having a lot of anger lately, and it alarms me because I think this is so unhealthy. And what am I going to do, right? Like, if somebody takes a toy away from him, he wants to kick that person's head, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very violent. It comes across as being very violent. And I'm not a child psychiatrist, and so I don't know the dynamics, or even just a child's, physician, a pediatrician, to know how their brains are capable of processing emotions, right? Like, my role as a mother is to try to understand what's going on with my child. And a lot of it is what I'm being told by the people that I listen to is that their brains aren't developed enough to know how to manage the emotions that are coming up. And I see it more frequently with the anger. And I observe when somebody is being angry at you, and I get caught in this trap also. It happened this morning. I woke up. My child wanted to go downstairs. I said, it's too early. Smack on the head. Kick me in the face. The anger.
He did that to you, not you to him. Just to be clear.
No, but after a while, it was getting more and more aggressive. And I took his hands. Like, the impulse for me to respond to that is to be forceful back. Even though my training is telling me, like, that's not what you do. You try to stay neutral, you deflect, you create a boundary, keep him safe, and you help him understand how to process these emotions. There's no helping him in that moment. But it's thinking about historically how young children, and if boys have more testosterone than girls at that age, I'm not positive. I've heard that. And so their anger responses are maybe more outsized or more frequent. And if so, they're being met with anger to their anger, that's what they learn, instead of being met with gentleness, like a boundary, a compassionate boundary, right? And so this is a research project of one, right, that I am performing in my own life to understand, like, what have we done when it comes to raising men that has, because his brain is forming right now, right? So if his brain is forming and learning these things, and he learns meet anger with anger or force with force, that's just what he learns. And that's what a predominance of men have learned. I mean, you look politically what's happening in many countries in the world. That is the first response to conflict.
And I'm not sure how different it is for girls and women in terms of reactivity. Maybe it's not like the same level of, like, I don't know, like violence and retaliation, but I feel like I've done a lot of work to be less reactive, right? And it's like, oh, I have these angry emotions and I have to process them and move through them, but they can't be directed at someone or something, right? I feel like it's that, like, awareness when you're triggered or you're activated or someone does something to piss you off. I don't know how many of us' first response is like, okay, like, I feel like there's the nervous system reaction that comes. And maybe it's more, I'm not trying to argue and say like it's less in boys or than in more in boys, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's something that all of us need to be more aware of.
Yes.
Right?
I agree. I mean, I think I've been seeing so, like, it feels like society as a whole is having a hard time processing their anger, and we're taking it out on other people.
For sure.
And yeah. And I think in like normal times when things aren't as charged globally, it may not present itself as frequently, but right now it's very charged globally. And so I feel like we're all in this pressure cooker, and it can be harder to manage.
And I guess maybe it does go back to how we were raised, right? And how when we were angry, we were told, no, you can't be. Maybe girls are told, like, no, you can't be angry. Stop being angry. That's not a good girl. Doesn't get angry, right? So there's a repression potentially versus a like spraying it all out. And when you repress it enough, like eventually it is going to come flying out all over the world.
Yeah. I can get lost, or I guess maybe not lost, but very distracted with what I'm observing, raising a child, and really thinking, how are humans formed? How are our patterns and habits formed? And watching others respond to the way he is, and then, observing myself and some of the ways that you can be pulled into it, especially when it's like a fierce masculine heat, fire energy.
Yeah. What else do you have any other thoughts, reflections, changes from what we've heard from some of our guests? Like, what stands out to you?
I think it's really just a pretty immense gratitude, and almost to acknowledge the confirmation of the work that we're doing, because of the way that our guests lined up. And we wanted to start with Theresa because of her film and because of her work and how it really aligned with our perspective of the feminine and the masculine. It'd be curious to go back to talk to her and hear her thoughts about what the conversations that came up with our other guests. But it just really feels like all of the guests aligned so perfectly in this order of like expanding the conversation. And it just, I just feel so grateful for all of the conversations that we've had so far.
Yeah. And I'm also thinking about how Duncan was the first male guest.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't had the podcast for that long, but you had your radio show for 8 years. And I felt like it was important. I guess we felt it was important to have a male voice, and we'll have more male voices in the mix. It felt important to further demonstrate our point, right? That the feminine energy is archetypal energy and it's not specific to gender.
Yeah.
And I feel like he was the perfect first male guest, given the work that he's doing and the men's work that he's doing out in the world, and the somatic piece of it just feels like, and even though he wouldn't consider it feminine at all, right? Like, and I don't think I would either, but it does really align with all the stuff that we've been talking about.
Right. Well, I think of somatic experiencing as a feminine practice.
Yeah, I guess that's true, because it's embodied.
Yeah,
right?
It's tuning inward, it's listening, it's noticing. It's not trying to control the physical experience, the emotional experience. It's being present with it, it's witnessing it, and that feels feminine to me. I think one of the things that was most surprising was how he described the manosphere, and how, he was like, what is kind of getting broadcasted, the film, the documentary film, isn't the manosphere, that it is a broader thing, but that these sort of very toxic people who are operating within the manosphere are getting a lot of affirmation and a lot of amplification. And it was an important reminder to hear from him about the male experience. I'm really glad that we did not have that conversation alone, because we were contemplating, talking about it. And it can be really easy to silo ourselves and to have expectations or assumptions about what somebody else is going through. And so to really have this window into him as a man and a father and somebody who works with men, to me, further kind of opened up my my empathy and my curiosity about what that experience is. And we had a comment on our social post about somebody was upset with me, maybe is the best way to say it, for suggesting that it is a woman's job to help men. And their perspective was, why would we help them when it's dangerous to do that? And, just for the record, that certainly is not what I'm suggesting. I have a lot of conversations with women about whether or not it's our role to be supportive of men. And it's everyone gets to choose how they want to spend their time and their energy. And certainly if it doesn't feel safe, don't do it. But the inquiry for me is why would I draw a line? If I am somebody who believes in the mother archetype, and the mother archetype is somebody who is nurturing and caring and supportive, why would I draw a line on the binary and say, I don't do that to men? I'll support women, I'll do this, but I don't do that to men. To me, that causes further harm. That's just where I'm at. That doesn't mean that I have to personally engage with every man and help them through their issues, or even the men I'm close to in my life. I don't have to do that, but to hold an open heart towards them, and sort of a vision for what it could be like for men to embody their sacred masculinity in a balance and an appreciation of their femininity, and a balance between the two, feels like a positive, energetic shift, even to just do that. Rather than creating an enemy, because we have enough enemies. We have a lot of energy out there that wants us to create enemies with other people. And when we separate that and put men in a corner, we are creating another enemy which would be no different than what other countries are doing. And the lineage of anger and hatred and fighting just continues on when we do that. Is the way I feel.
Yeah. So while we've been filming these and interviewing these different people, and I watched the Louis Theroux Manosphere documentary, and I was like reading all the pieces that are coming out on Substack and all of this outrage, rightfully so, right? And some of these things that some of these men are doing, I found myself becoming a little bit of a man hater.
Yeah.
I found myself like dipping down into this thing. I was in an airport and I was just like looking at everybody. I was like, are you an asshole? Are you an asshole? Are you a safe person? You know, I was really just like feeling all of this like anger and hatred towards men. And I was like, you know, just carrying all of this for like not even a week, but was for a few days. And then I came home to Ariel. I was like, Ariel, I think I'm a man hater now. I don't know what's going on. Like I'm going through this thing where I'm just like so outraged and so angry, like, and so distrustful. I'm just like, oh my God, this is awful. Like they're all awful. You're all awful. And he was like, Jenny, please, no, please don't become a man. I'm like, maybe I will. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I'm working through it. And then I'm so grateful that I got to the other side of it. But I did kind of go through, because I did see what you're saying is, oh, I'm just creating more division. And what was also happening is what it was doing to me, right? Like it was more about what it was doing to me in terms of like, oh, I'm holding all of this anger. I'm holding all of this resentment. I'm analyzing and just kind of like, because usually I walk through the world assuming the best of people and just like being friendly to everyone that I come in contact with. And I was like, oh, I do not want to become a more shut down person. I understand why and how some people do that based on their experiences. Like, and I'm not saying everyone should be like me, like, which I think is what you're saying too. But I did feel so grateful that I like worked it through and got myself to the other side of it. And it was just like this like experience that I needed to go through to come back out on the other side and say like, oh, you're not helping yourself and you're not helping anyone else by carrying around these feelings and this suspicion and this whole like thing. Because I do think it's true that we don't see all of the good examples,
Right.
like Duncan was saying, which I thought was so important to remember, like the provocative, like wild, like hooks that like, oh, let's watch what these men are doing. They're making millions of dollars. They have millions of followers. You know, it's just this like glamour, not glamorous, that's not the right word, but there's big energy and like what's going on over there kind of thing. And that it is getting amplified. And it's so important to remember there's quieter podcasts like us, right? And what we're doing that's just as important, even though it doesn't have the audience and it's not like trying to like hook people in by using provocative language, which I did propose for a minute. I was like, maybe we should be like man hater podcasts, which obviously we will not, but we would have more interest, more followers, more da 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 da, and be able to reach more people. But that's not the way to do it. It's to remember that there's these other examples that are happening more quietly in smaller spaces that are just as impactful.
Yeah, I guess that ties back to sort of what I was talking about earlier and how the men who embody the feminine are not getting the airplay, right? They're not getting, they're, potentially being shunned and ridiculed by certain men's circles. And so how do we shift that? And I do think it's on all of us to do that. It's to be accepting of it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like for me, it's about continuing to look for examples where like the good is happening, because it's not going to be presented to you on your feed, right? So how are you looking for information? Because it's not as, I guess, is it not as interesting? It's not as dramatic, right?
Well, that's where, the news media
Yeah.
industry knows how to hook people into reading an article. It's why most news stories are about the death, the destruction, the fighting, for some reason. And this was, just, I think, amplified with the past few presidential elections in this country. The fighting, for some reason, is more stimulating to the brain. And right, that we had COVID that kept everyone inside and and cut off from people. So it's like we needed some sort of thing to feel alive, to feel stimulated. And again, that's where it's reflecting to ourselves, and what are we filling our consciousness with?
Yeah.
Why are we tuning in to the bombastic? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's just, I'm sure there's a psychiatrist out there who can explain why the brain is geared towards that, why it wants more of that. I mean, that's, I guess, the same reason that they built social media the way it is. I mean, and we have to take our brains back. We have to reclaim our brains.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Because they're literally getting rewired with the way that we're consuming short form content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like looking for the good stories, looking for the helpers.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, finding helpers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will have, both men and women who we believe are embodying these qualities. But I look forward to bringing the male perspective in to sort of, as you said, highlight those who may not be making headlines, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I guess I'm thinking again about calling Perdita's work revolutionary, because I do think that she has a provocative angle.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to think about too, because the way that she speaks so impassioned and like has written these books from kind of an out there, some would consider, from the mainstream perspective. So hopefully some of that like attention goes to work like that.
Right.
That's, I don't know.
Well, and that's what was I can't remember if we were talking about it, where I would have been talking about it, but it would be the patriarchy. Oh, that's it. Okay. I got it. I listened to an interview of Susan Aberth, who, can I find this podcast now? Is an art historian, professor at Bard College. And I know I made a note of it somewhere, but I believe it was in the context of, she's done a lot of research of, wrote a book about Leonora Carrington, who is an artist like 1800s, early 1900s. I should know this, and she had a very close friendship with another female artist. I believe they were living in Mexico at the time. And she was talking about how they used humor as a mask to get in to the patriarchy. And it was like the Trojan horse sort of philosophy. And it made me think about how I often am embodying this role of like, you're doing it wrong, you're doing it bad, don't do it that way, do it this way, right? Kind of attitude. Or at least that's the dialogue in my head. And there's a way to be really creative about inspiring change. And one of these women, or both of these women, were using humor as a way of getting in and sort of becoming a part of the world of the patriarchy in order to try to get a different message out into it. It made me think about us, because we worked in the corporate patriarchal structures, and how we understand it? And is there a way for us to infiltrate on the down low? No, I'm just kidding. But that's sort of where my brain was going.
So this idea of like coming in and smashing it from the outside, from the inside.
Not even smashing it, but you were talking about, is it important to be provocative in order to have the eyes on you and people listening to you because you are hoping that they hear your message? And an alternative to that is to use a different method that is basically magnetizing people, not through sort of that trickery of the mind, right? Where it's like the tantalizing headline. It's almost through joy. It's through joy and pleasure. And how do we ride that, put that into the mix so that there's actually a magnetism towards it that's coming from a different part of our body through joy, pleasure, even curiosity perhaps. But that's how it comes in, rather than an intellectual argument that isn't always going to be very interesting, or people might be tuned out from that kind of behavior.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you understanding me?
I'm understanding you. I'm trying to think about how to do it.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm thinking about...
We're revealing our secrets here. We may edit this one out too.
I'm thinking about Perdita, who's saying, well, I'm having a party. Right. And, like this party is going to be full of all the ripe fruit and all of the dancing and all of the, totally. So that energy, is a way to magnetize. Yes. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which feels more aligned than...
Because you're creating more of that energy, right? It's not a manipulation of the brain. You're creating this energy that's actually a beautiful energy to build, right? Joy and love and humor and playfulness. Like if we all embodied that more, that would actually, I believe, initiate other types of changes for the positive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And how do you write that into a YouTube hook? Like, there's like all of these like classes on how to get people to click on your YouTube video. I just can't go there in terms of like, it does feel like a manipulation, right? And so the people that find us will find us because of a genuine interest and curiosity.
Yeah.
And sure, it's again like I'm being a purist and being like, I'm not going to play your game YouTube or Instagram to just try to like pull in people that way. And sure, we're probably missing people who would click on a more provocative headline. What's it on your thumbnail on the YouTube? But I just can't compromise myself to the ways of the social media world like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think if you're authentically embodying something that is of value to people and there's the right energy, it will find it, certainly not always, but it's not like we're trying to become big for the sake of being big. Even if we just reached one CEO.
True.
Just one CEO of Walmart or Amazon, just one of them. And it caused them to pause and rethink their values. That's all we need, folks. Just one CEO.
Or just one average person.
No, one CEO. I need a CEO. Okay. I think we can put that. That's our reflection and integration process, which will still be evolving. Yeah. Should we talk about the full moon?
Full moon is Sunday, May 31st. Full moon in Sagittarius.
The day this is launching.
Yes.
Or the day it launched, if you're listening to it after the fact.
The second full moon of May, blue moon, Sagittarius. What do you know about that, Theresa?
Well, I don't know anything of it other than I haven't actually spent much time thinking about it, usually if I'm doing a sound bath, I'm tuning in to what's going on, but I'm not in that mindset right now. So I did just a little internet search, and the internet tells me that, I mean, I'm just going to be a snark for a moment again, that the unusual occurrence of a blue moon, to me, it's like we're operating in the Gregorian calendar. It's made up anyways. The moon has its own schedule. The moon is always full and new, on full and new. You know, like they're really, to me, the blue moon doesn't mean a whole lot.
Yeah.
But the full moon, during this time of the year in the Northeast, I think of abundance. I think of blossoming. I mean, we just had the full flower moon. The next full moon after this must be the strawberry moon. But it's like, right, things are coming alive. We've entered into spring. It feels like we've entered into summer here in the Hudson Valley of New York, at least temporarily. And it is a nice time to sort of check in, like, how am I feeling with my spring vibes? Like, how am I embodying spring? And summer will be here soon. The heat will be here soon. And what do I want to keep doing before I like slow down and just play in the water all the time? It's kind of like, it's still like get some work done, grow the stuff, do the stuff. And then for the month of July and August, it's too hot.
I was reading about the moon too, and it was saying that if you put in the grit, you put in the determination, you put in like the work, right, then you can really get a lot accomplished, which does kind of feel like you could make a garden comparison, right? Like getting all the seedlings into the ground, weeding all the weeds that have been growing, and getting those seedlings in the ground now will allow you to appreciate their fruits come the later months of summer and early fall. And I feel like this about my business too. I'm like ready to like put the pedal to the metal. Is that the
flower pedal? To the metal tincture ball.
Yeah. I feel like really inspired and really motivated and really ready to, just see what I can create.
What's the name of the device that you use to distill?
It's an alembic.
That's made of metal, right?
It's made of copper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're literally putting the pedal to the metal.
Oh, yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like how
Magical.
you can change that. It's like instead of like this sort of like capitalistic
pedal to the metal.
Yeah.
Oh, can I use that?
Yes.
Another thing I feel like I want to say, it's not related necessarily to the full moon, but it is related to the turning of the seasons. Summer solstice is coming in June.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you do this, but I used to think like, oh, summer solstice, the longest day, it's going to be light so late. But actually at summer solstice is when the days start getting shorter. So appreciate now before the summer solstice that the days are still getting longer and we have daylight so late into the evening now. Like I used to not really get on that train until summer solstice came, but in the past couple of years I'm like, wait, May is like a really juicy late night, like bright skies time too.
And for those of us with small children who don't go to bed until it's dark out, the lightness takes on a whole new meaning. We could play outside forever. Yeah, no, that's a good point. As I was just sort of like meandering into the future of the season, so like thinking about this season and what to appreciate about it, but how really like you're talking about like planting the garden, and then we kind of go into this like water phase. It's like water the earth, and we're swimming in water, like we're dancing with water.
Oh, yeah.
It's the water time to really like embrace that. In the winter, you're not really aligning with water as much, right? I mean, spring, the waters come, it makes all the earth, alive, and the flowers and the plants grow. And then summer, at least for me, I'm just like, I need to be in water all the time.
Yeah.
And then fall comes and we're less interested in water.
It's more air.
Yeah.
With the leaves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, summer you think of as fire, right? It is, and it is, but we need the feminine water to balance the fire. So we're entering our phase.
Yes. It's our time to shine.
Yes. Will you do a full moon ritual?
Yeah. What will I do? I don't know. But yeah, I think so. I feel like, especially this time of year, I like to do things outside. And at a minimum, something that I like to do again this time of year is make a moon water, right? So taking a mason jar and filling it with whatever fresh flowers and herbs are around and leaving it outside in the moon overnight and then drinking it the next day to kind of really like infuse myself with the energy of that moon.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's water. What about you?
I don't know. It's a Sunday, and those days are harder for me to have time for myself. But
Well, the 3 days before and the 3 days after are also times that you can be in that energy if that's easier.
Yeah. The 29th. Maybe I'll do a little something on the 29th. Not that you all care. Just looking at my calendar. I guess this is a moment to observe how the masculine comes in to help support us being in the feminine. And for me to acknowledge, I did just have therapy yesterday, and we were reflecting on how in a way, it's very hard to put things on my schedule because of my child and the age he's in. And then, this morning I was like, oh my God, I think he's going to throw up. I just felt like something was going to happen, and I was going to be like, and then I have to cancel everything for the day. And I've been stressed out in those moments so often that I end up just like trying not to put too much on my schedule. But of course, rituals for myself, and there are things obviously that I need to put on my schedule, but rituals for myself are something that just have kind of like gone by the wayside because it just becomes, I can barely manage the things that I need to be responsible for. But in therapy, it was like a good reminder to try to make time for it. And when I was recently in ritual with you and you did that breathing exercise, which was really just a simple breath for a few minutes. It was such a potent, my body just felt very like potently different after it. And this is totally an aside, but I went and I spent 4 hours at my son's school one day. And when I left there, I felt serene. I felt so like I could just float through the rest of the day. And I was like, what happened? I was at school with a bunch of 3 and 6 year olds, but there was something about the teachers have a schedule and everything runs by these blocks, but within it, the kids just play. They just go and do all this stuff. And then they have a way with their skills as teachers do of like pulling them in, and then they hold the container and they keep a really, really strong container. and then they go and they play. And I don't know if that was like soothing to my nervous system or what. Anyway, so that's just me reflecting out loud about needing the container to do these things. So I will make a container for this full moon.
And I also feel maybe one of the things you're touching on is that when you do, well, I'll speak for myself, but I think this is more broad ranging than me. When I do make the time, like, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do a ritual. But when I do carve out the time, and it can be even a short amount of time, it is renewing and refreshing. And it does feel like it creates more space and ease for the rest of the things that are more task oriented and along those lines of responsibility. And I think that it's one of the first thing that goes when I get like busy is like, oh, I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. But actually taking the time to do that seems to somehow create more time in other ways.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to breathe intentionally more often.
And the breathing exercise that we did, it's a heart coherence breath. And the recommendation to, and also the pneumatic, is that the word? 365. It's 365 to remember it. 3 times a day, 6 breaths a minute for 5 minutes. I don't do it 3 times a day, but I do it every morning and sometimes in the car and sometimes later in the day. And all you're doing is breathing in for 5, out for 5. And that's aligning yourself with the rhythm of your heart and just kind of like bringing you into coherence with your body. And it's so simple and so effective. Like I needed to really simplify a lot of my morning routine. And that was one thing that I found that was just like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, full moon blessings to everyone. We have some amazing guests coming up in the next, well, for the next year. We do have kind of everything planned out for the year, sort of.
Not everybody knows that we have them on our plan yet.
No, but we do have amazing guests in the queue for the next few months. And we look forward to sharing our conversations with you.
And if you enjoy this, please send it to a friend and subscribe and follow. Is that the subscribe, like, follow, share?
Hit the like button.
Ding, ding, ding. Thank you.
Ciao.